you're having a great day. Thank you for attending this session. So welcome to the stage. So from Toowoomba to Dallas, scaling a high consideration brand in a global e-commerce world. Please welcome Caleb Gittins.
Thank you. Hi everyone, hope you're having a good retail fest. I've seen a few of you over the past few days. To anyone I haven't met, my name's Caleb. I am senior front-end developer at Milton King. So Milton King began in Toowoomba on the traditional grounds of the Gayabul people. And even though our team is spread across the globe today, a lot of us are still on the land whose rightful custodians are First Nations people who have cared for the land, water and sky for tens of thousands of years. And here today, we pay respect to the Yugambeh language region of the Gold Coast and all their descendants, past and present. Now, a bit about me. I'm born and raised in southeast Queensland, Toowoomba to be exact, and now I'm based in Brisbane. I've got over a decade experience working as a developer pretty much from high school. I started working in various agencies. The most recent one was 13 Digital in Brisbane. And that's where I first started working with Milton King. So my road to being part of the company is a little different. I was working with them in-house at the agency, and I built their website in 2018, and then they approached me to work in-house for them in 2023. So I've been with them 3 years at this point. Now, who is Milton King? To put it simply, we design, print, and sell wallpaper and fabric. So we started in Toowoomba in 2012, and it's a family business. So started by Richard, our CEO, and Bryce, our creative director. Now, in 2016, we expanded to the USA, seeing the potential for growth over there. And that started off in Austin and then in Dallas, where we now have our production warehouse and showroom in the design district over there. Back here in Toowoomba in 2018, we were able to bring all our production in-house, which was huge for us, being able to print and ship all our Australia and New Zealand orders from Toowoomba. And then most recently in 2023, Bryce headed over to the UK, to Hove on the south coast, to set up our creative studio. So over there we have our in-house artist Yasmin. So she designs all of our in-house collections under the Milton King Studio brand. So we're not a huge team, but we're also not a small team, just under 30 people across 3 countries. So as I mentioned, in Toowoomba, Bryce and Richard have moved home, so they run operations from there. Plus we also print and ship all our Australian orders from Toowoomba. In Brisbane, we have a marketing team and myself. In the UK, we have more marketing and creative artist Yasmin. And then in the USA, our biggest team for all of our rest of the world orders, because US is our biggest market. Now, wallpaper. A show of hands, who had wallpaper on their wall as a kid? All right. Anyone still have wallpaper on their wall now? Thank you. Yeah, bathroom is actually one of our most popular categories. So our core product is non-woven wallpaper. And when I say non-woven, I mean your standard stick to the wall. It's not removable. It's the type of wallpaper you'd see in any home or business. We've got just over 1,000 SKUs there. So that's 1,000 unique designs. But all up with different color layers and sizes, we're running just over 16,000 SKUs. Now, the beauty of wallpaper being a printable product is you can just put a different base into the printer and all of a sudden you have a whole new product. So we also have a commercial vinyl for our trade customers. So that's great for high traffic areas, hospitality, hotels, things like that. Last year we launched our specialty bases, which are natural textures like grass cloth, even metallic wallpaper. So it's like a gold or silver backing with a design over the top. And also just launched fabric in the USA in the last 6 months as well. So how do we get a wallpaper to market? So typically we will design a collection of 8 to 20 different products. We'll name the collection. It'll all have a cohesive feel. It's all very intentionally designed. and that is designed by Yasmin in the UK. So she will hand paint, even techniques like lino cut. She'll scan it all in digitally, set up the print files, and that's how it works. So even though we're a digital company, there's still a lot of handmade artwork at the beginning of the process. Now, last year we launched 22 collections, which was 230 products. So that was a huge year for us, and it was a bit of a departure. Last year we really decided we want to push a lot of new product. So we're releasing fortnightly. So we probably won't keep up that pace this year, but yeah, we're definitely launching at least every month. In addition to our own collections, we also work with about 30 other designers. So they'll create their own collections and come to us, and we'll work with them to refine them and then sell them on the website. And we're an e-commerce first company. As I mentioned, we have a showroom in Dallas, but it's really not a lot of heavy traffic there. So everything we do is e-commerce first. I'm not going to get too technical in this talk, but we do have 5 different WooCommerce sites for USA, Australia, UK, Europe, and recently the UAE. Now, the reason we have separate sites is it just gives us that really fine-grained control over product availability, tax, shipping, customer data, and integrations. I've got a bit to get through today. So marketing and selling a high consideration product, multiple benefits of clean, structured data, embedding transparency and sustainability in the company, lessons from moving teams in-house, serving retail trade and showroom customers, building custom digital experiences for our customers, and in summary, scaling globally while staying e-commerce first. So something to understand about wallpaper is it's not an impulse buy. You know, people are going to take their time. They're also, in their lifetime, generally not going to purchase it more than once or maybe twice. So there's a few considerations when you're selling a product like that. So to give you a bit of an idea of a typical customer journey for us, they'll jump on the website and they'll purchase some samples. Now, these are like A4 samples, just a small piece of the pattern just to give you an idea of the texture and the color. Most people buy between 1 to 5 different samples. These might be different colors of the same design or 5 different designs. But then once they receive that sample, there's the consideration phase, which on average takes about 11 weeks for us until they come back to the website and they buy their full roll of wallpaper to put up at home. And I guess there's sometimes when there's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but yeah, about 11 weeks. So we kind of think about conversions as like a 2-step process. They got to buy the sample first, and then they'll buy the actual full product. So some of the challenges of that is your customers are going to have a lower lifetime value. You know, if they're only purchasing once or twice in their lifetime, you're going to need a lot more of those customers than repeat customers. And we all know it's difficult, it's more expensive to get new customers than to retain existing ones. The spend is also spread out. Like a lot of times they're purchasing a sample through a promo, so there'll be a customer, but they might have bought 3 samples, so they're not actually paying until 2 or 3 months later. And during that time, we don't really know what's happening. There's a bit of a gap in knowledge. There's a fine line between reaching out to them and hassling them. So there is a bit of a research piece. We're always trying to get a bit more feedback about what's happening between the sample purchase and the roll purchase. And the last challenge is we can't rely on, all the traditional types of marketing. Buy one, get one free isn't necessarily going to mean a lot to people. No one's going to buy wallpaper for Mother's Day. So we have to get a bit creative and just kind of work around restrictions like that. But it's not all bad news. There are some positives of a high consideration, and we are more on the luxury side, definitely a higher end product. We don't do like the peel and stick removable wallpaper. So some of the positives, it's a pretty predictable cycle. We generally know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, which lets us be more targeted. We don't really need to waste time on too many different forms of marketing because we know the typical process. It's also, from a business point of view, it's a steady cash flow. We're not seeing peaks and valleys. We don't do Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Yes, we have quiet periods, but typically it's pretty steady. Because if you think, the people who bought a sample now, in 2 months they're going to be buying a roll. The people who bought it 2 months before that. So it's all a pretty steady cash flow. Another great thing about our company is we have a really low refund rate. It's only 1.86%. Because if you think about it, if you're taking this much time to decide on a product, you're not that likely to want to return it. If you've put all this thought and effort into it, you're generally going to keep it, which is great. And the other thing is a lot of our customers are interior designers, architects, set decorators. So we get some incredible user-generated content back. Like if you jump on our Instagram, like any given day, there's some amazing photography on there. We're always featured in magazines, movies. I've seen our stuff in the background of TV shows. So it's really cool to actually see our stuff out there in the real world. So how do you sell a high consideration product like Wallpaper? Firstly, your website needs to work really hard for you. You've got to answer every potential question a customer might have before they check out. For a visual product like ours, you need really, really good photography and different types of photography, which I'll get into in a second. And again, knowing that there's a kind of a two-step process to a purchase, how do you make the first part of that seamless and as free from friction as possible so the customer can get to that second stage and finalize their purchase? And the last thing is your virtual customer support needs to rival your in-store support. Like I said, we're 99% e-commerce. We don't have showrooms or brick-and-mortar stores where people can just walk in. So the support on the website needs to be just as good as if you walked into the showroom in Dallas. We're speaking to a showroom staff there. So when we're looking at this type of things customers want to know before they purchase, first of all, how much wallpaper am I purchasing? We sell in 10-meter rolls, which doesn't really mean a lot to a customer. It's very hard to visualize what that's actually going to look like. In addition, we also have murals, which might be 2, 3, 6 panels. So for things like that, we have supporting imagery, we've got diagrams, we've got illustrative images, things like that. Secondly, how much does it cost? And for comparison with competitors, like what's the unit pricing? It's really important for us to have square meter or square foot pricing, not just on the website, but also in other shopping feeds like Google and Meta, because we know that customers are going to be on other websites, and Wallpaper is a kind of a tricky product. Not everyone sells the exact same thing. So having that unit pricing is a huge positive, so the customer can kind of see our pricing versus others. Probably the most important one, how much wallpaper do I actually need to cover my walls? So on our website, we have a really good wallpaper calculator, and it's kind of set up to overestimate just a little bit, because we do recommend getting a little bit more, and you can always return it if it's too much. One of the difficulties of wallpaper is because it's a printable product. If you print something 1 month, the colors will look a certain way, but if you print it the next month, there's variations in the ink. So you don't want to be buying 2 different rolls of wallpaper for the same room, as there will be slight variance. And the final question, what will it look like in my space? Which I'll get to in my next point. So in terms of photography, for our bigger collections, like this one was from our spring-summer launch, we were able to do a real photo shoot over in the UK. Now, we don't always have the budget for that, so that's great, but for a lot of our collections, we're putting together, in Photoshop or using AI to create these room images. So we use 3 key images to help our customers decide what wallpaper they want. The first is a swatch image, which is a close-up of the pattern. It's best for selecting a color and seeing details of the design. And this is kind of the image you'll see across the website. That's the primary image. Secondly, we have our in-situ image or room scene, or for some people, this will be like your lifestyle shot. This gives a really good idea of scale, because it's actually quite difficult to tell looking at a flat image the size of patterns or how they're going to repeat across a larger space. This is also our most compelling image. This is really what sells the product. If people can kind of see it in their space. And for that reason, this is what we use in our Google and Meta catalogs. The final image is this roll image. which shows how the pattern's going to match up. Because one of the issues with wallpaper is not every pattern is seamless. Like this one, for example, you've got to hang one roll and then move the next one down a little bit. But again, this just kind of gives the customer a preview. It kind of shows them what to expect, what they're going to receive, and how it's going to look when they're installing it. Now, onto optimizing that first purchase experience. So we know customers are going to buy samples. And one thing I didn't touch on earlier, but because we control the whole production process, we're able to print everything made to order. But it doesn't really make a lot of sense to print all these full 10-meter rolls of wallpaper and just keep them sitting around, because our sales are quite different. But what we can do with the A4 samples is, knowing we have a new collection coming out, we can print all those in advance. So in some cases, if customers are ordering samples, they're going out that day or next day. Because we really want to close that window, get the first part of the purchase right. Secondly, just being mindful of what post-purchase communication you have. The things that are relevant after they've purchased a full roll and they're putting it up in their house, they're not going to be relevant when they've just purchased a sample and they haven't even made a choice. So just being really mindful of, not just setting up one post-purchase flow and applying it to everything. And as I mentioned earlier, we can also reduce friction for us by pre-printing samples and getting that production process really easy. Because again, that just makes it quicker to get to the customer. Now, in terms of virtual support, we have a live chat on our website, and it's manned by real team members across America, Australia, and the UK. And they're team members who have been with us for up to 10 years. They've got a really deep knowledge of the product. So we don't have an AI bot. We don't have you type in and get back a list of FAQs. We're pretty lucky that, being a global company, our live chat can almost be 24/7 with real people. And then, of course, that's supported by FAQs, video content, and blog posts. Now, I'm going to jump onto data. I know a lot of you will have heard a lot about AI, so I'm not going to go too deep into AI. I want to step back before that to the foundation of AI, which is data, because without data, there's no AI. So Wallpaper's fairly complex, and with a lot of designs, we have a lot of data. So at a high level, at category level, we have things to help us organize things and things to help customers find what they're looking for. And then at a product level, aside from all the standard e-commerce fields, we have a lot of technical specifications and things about wallpaper. So, products could have 20 to 30 different data points on each product. I'm going to give you a quick case study about why having good data is important. So on our website, our products have up to 8 colors, but we only select one featured image. So when they're browsing the website, how do we make sure, if they want to search by blue wallpaper, but this wallpaper comes in 8 different colors, how do we make sure that blue variant is showing? So what we did is we set up our color families first, which is more general, red, blue, green, and then we looked at our colorways, which are specific to each product. Now, to give you an idea of our colorways, when I looked at the data for blue, we actually had 40 different names for designs which fall under blue. As I mentioned earlier, we work with all different artists. They've got full creative control over design names, color names. So they don't want to just sell their wallpaper under blue. They want to have a specific name for it. So what we essentially did is, in our CMS, we just linked all of these colorways to that blue color family. And then we're able to push that through to our amazing Athos Commerce product, which handles all our search and products listing pages. We push that piece of data through, and that means when customers land on those pages, instead of seeing a mix of different colors, they're seeing a seamless color page with the relevant variants. And this is just really good for customers. It means the website is matching customer expectation. This is also filterable by URL as well. So they can almost create mood boards on the website by using all these filters and then just sending that link. A second case study, prior to last year, when we were launching new products, we were manually doing it. So 2 people on our team would go into the CMS, duplicate an old product, change the details, and then keep doing that. And it was taking days at a time just to get all the data ready just for a collection. But last year when we decided to focus on new product launches, it kind of forced us to be more efficient, because if we're launching every fortnight, we can't really spend 4 or 5 days just getting the data ready on one website. So we went back to basics, a good old Excel spreadsheet, and I just built out an import template, which has all the product data in it, all the images. Some of our products have up to 20 images, so we don't want to be doing that manually. So the spreadsheet actually has built-in validation, so I can make sure all the images are named correctly, all of the alt text captions are set. So when it comes time to launch the collection, we just have to upload images and import a spreadsheet. So it's cut the time down to, if we're doing it across 5 websites, we can get that done in 2 days, which previously that was taking over a week. And this is just an example of like the size of the spreadsheet. And we would love to have a PM, a product information management system, but we don't right now. So a spreadsheet works great for us. And so just to give you an idea of impact, we increased our products launches 144%, and we didn't need to hire anyone else. We managed to do that with our own team, still working on other internal projects. Another couple of things I want to touch on with data. The more control over you have over the input, the more control you're going to have over the output. So I know every CMS is different, but if you can have that fine-grained control, it's going to make it so much easier, because these days it's not just your website. You're pushing to Google, Meta, Pinterest, all sorts of places. And the less you have to manipulate that data, the better. If you're exporting data, it's going to be much quicker if it's already in the correct format. And data is pretty malleable, it's portable, so even if you don't get it right, you can always change it. Like, we're constantly changing how our data is stored, where it's stored. Every CMS has import-export feature, which makes this easy. And the flow-on effect is AI and search engines. They love structured data, they love clean data, they love separate pieces of data. They want to see a shipping time in days. They don't want to see this attached to other benefits or other text. And with data, it's always easier to combine it to split. So the more you split up the data, the easier it's going to be to work with. The other thing I want to touch on is just, in terms of web, you never know how customers are going to use their data. They might take a screenshot, they might download the image, they might send a link to someone. So I guess just something to think about if you have the ability to make your URLs dynamic. So if they're changing a colorway, it's reflected in the URL, and they can send that, and it's the same experience as sending a screenshot. Next, transparency and sustainability. So in a world of AI, fast fashion, and dupes, how do you be transparent and increase customer trust and confidence? As I mentioned earlier, we're pretty lucky. We have all our production and manufacturing in-house, so we know everything that happens, we control everything that happens. We can be really transparent. If you're in the US, it's printed and it's shipped from Dallas. If you're in Australia, it's printed and shipped from Toowoomba. So just being transparent about that on the website, or in some cases, some of our products do ship from the US. It's really just about communicating that to the customer. As well as shipping times is a huge one for e-commerce. If you're going to list shipping times, particularly if they're a benefit, you need to be on top of them if things change. In the US, we had a snowstorm recently, so we had to change all our shipping times. We had to put a message up on the site. But it's really important that you just communicate that, because we all hate that experience of seeing one time on the website and you expect it, and then all of a sudden it's like 5 days later. And I guess just be mindful of, it's not just the website. If you've got stuff in your EDMs or other type of media, you really need to be on top of updating that, those kind of changes. I mentioned earlier we have a really low return rate, and I think that's because we have a pretty good return policy. I think we're all pretty aware of, the importance of that these days. And the last one is just customer support. Like I mentioned earlier, where possible, if you can have that human rather than AI, that's always great. In terms of sustainability, we print on demand, so we really try as much as possible to reduce waste. We're not printing your order until you've paid for it, so we don't have stock sitting around. In the case that people do return products, what we do is we sell those in a warehouse sale. So yeah, we really try, firstly, just reduce as much waste as possible. And again, we're lucky to have localized manufacturing. So, we're not dealing with air freight. We're generally, lower carbon offsets. And yeah, I guess another thing we do is just like the planetary initiative. And I think that's kind of the bare minimum you can do for sustainability these days. But yeah, it's definitely a huge focus for us, and it's, again, something we consider from the beginning of the process all the way through to the end. Now I'm going to have a talk about agency versus in-house. So there's a lot of great agencies out there. I've worked with a few of them. But I guess at Milton King, we kind of reached that tipping point where we really needed that support in-house. And so we've slowly kind of moved all the roles in-house. Last one was like a paid media role. So we have in-house developer, EDM specialist, designer, paid media, marketing, as well as like a creative director and all of our production staff. So I guess the benefits of an in-house team is you'd have the luxury of time. You're spending 40 hours a week, 160 hours a month on this business rather than, 10, 20 hours a month. And you have the luxury of time. Like, yes, there's deadlines, but if that's your only deadline, then that makes things a lot easier. And it's just a bit of a better culture. For our internal projects, there is budget, but I'll talk about an example in the next part. We work on this internal project and we've gone back and completely rebuilt it. Like if we were working with an agency, that would have just doubled the cost. Because it's an internal project, you have a bit more flexibility with budgets and things like that. Another huge thing for us is approval processes. Having teams in different time zones, different parts of the world, it's hard to get approvals generally, but when you're working with different time zones, it's even more difficult. So having that all in-house and not having to go out to a third party for approvals is great. For example, our CFO is in-house, so even marketing spend, budgets like that, we can get approved in hours, which is great. So some of the impact of having an in-house team. So in the 12 months after myself and Chris, our head of e-commerce, started working there full time, we saw a 15% increase in revenue, which was over 6 figures. Having in-house email marketing, so a 50% increase in subscribers. We were able to send out almost double the amount of content, and that resulted in a 37% increase in revenue. Another cool thing we have, being a lot of in-house team, we have our On the Wall podcast, and we're actually, so Chris, who produces and edits our podcast, he's actually a really talented musician. He's in a band. So having people on the team like that, most of us come from a creative background. So it's really cool to see people use their skills to work on things within the company. All right, now how to serve retail, trade and showroom customers without breaking UX. So to talk a bit about our customers, so we have our retail customers, which is B2C, homeowners, things like that. They make up 92% of our customers. Now, in terms of average values, lifetime value is about 350, average order value is about 240, lifetime orders is only 1.45, and lifetime items is 5, which is usually going to be 4 samples in 1 roll. In contrast, our trade customers, so these are repeat customers. These are professionals, interior designers, architects, decorators, specifiers, and they work in both commercial and residential spaces. Now, on our website, they fall under tiers 1 to 4, with a discount range up to 50%, depending on the size of the business. So their lifetime value is sitting around 1,600. Average order value is about 420. Because typically, if they're going to buy wallpaper, they're not just going to do 1 room in the house. They're going to be trying to push it to multiple areas. It's to make that a bit easier to digest. This is an index chart. Essentially, our trade customers are spending 2 to 5 times more than retail customers over their lifetime. So with that in mind, knowing that there are repeat customers, what sort of things do we do to nurture them and encourage them? So firstly, price discounts. As I mentioned, up to 50% off. They're listed on our website. People often ask us, is there someone who can help me install it? So we have our trade directory on there, as well as our retail stockists. Trade customers also have access to exclusive products. Like I mentioned earlier, commercial wall coverings, as well as some designs just for trade. And the last one is we have some tools on our website which are for designers. They're only for trade. They don't really exist anywhere else. But that's another benefit our customers have. And most recently in the USA, we have started partnering with a company called Baker Furniture. They have showrooms all across the country, which is really cool for us because it means we get to have a dedicated space in all these showrooms without the overhead of opening up our own brick and mortar. Now, they have a pretty different use case for the website. So what would happen is an interior designer will walk into the showroom, they'll look at products, then they need to go through the showroom staff to place an order on the website. So the customer themselves isn't interacting with the website. So they have pretty unique functionality required. And a lot of, they're essentially seeing the same website, but at the checkout, they'll have different payment methods, different things they can do there. So sometimes it's not necessarily about changing the whole website, it's just customizing parts of it for different customer groups. I don't know if any of you have had the misfortune of dealing with the USA tax system, but something we worked on recently for our showroom customers is the ability to make an order tax exempt, because a lot of professionals over there, they can apply for a tax exempt certificate, so they don't need to pay sales tax at checkout. So just things like that. And again, because we have an in-house team, we can kind of cater to all their needs, even the more obscure ones. And I want to talk a bit about custom digital experiences, not just using apps or plugins on your store can create a competitive advantage. So we're lucky that we are almost like a digital agency, really. So we have so many talented people on our team. And a lot of the times, if we want new functionality of our website, sure, we'll look at apps or plugins, but sometimes they're just not quite right. So we'll build our own. So one thing that you've probably never heard of is a swatch book. This is something design professionals use. It's basically a book of all different types of swatches. They don't want to be ordering samples from the website every time they've got a new client. So they'll put together a list of their favorite designs and curate them all in this one book, which they can take to their clients or have in their showrooms. So it's essentially a build-a-bundle product, but it's quite customized. We had specific needs. We needed to pull existing SKUs so we could track all of that sort of thing. So we ended up just building our own WooCommerce plugin. It's only for our trade customers. It cuts down that decision process because you don't have to wait for a sample to be shipped out. So this is something that our customers really wanted and needed. So we really don't even do any marketing on this. It's just something they purchase because they need it and it's going to be helpful to them. So we've sold, I think, around 40,000 US with very little marketing. And again, just being mindful of what your customers actually need, what they're going to be using. Because if you can provide that, that's just an extra value add. Another thing which is really cool, which we'll hopefully be launching next year, is our custom wallpaper creator. So this will let you jump onto the website. You can choose from 800 different colors, I think 20 different patterns. So you can actually create your own design on the website. You can then save it, you can share it, or if you're happy with it, you can then get it printed like any of our other designs. And again, this is something that just doesn't really exist in the market, so we built it because it's something that we thought would be really valuable. All right, so in summary, I'm going to give you some practical insights for scaling internationally while staying e-commerce first. Firstly, you need to build local teams. And that's not just senior management, being on the ground out there to set things up. It's hiring local people with local knowledge and connections. We really try and be a part of the design communities wherever we are. And the team have made huge personal sacrifice. Bryce and Richard moved young families overseas. Our head of e-commerce, Chris, moved to the UK last year. It's not easy, but you kind of need to if you want to make a mark in any overseas markets. And just having local people really helps because even though we sell the same product, there's different verbiage, imperial versus metric. There's different things in every region when it comes to products. So having that on the ground knowledge is really important. And like I mentioned earlier, attending local events, we'll host events in our showroom in Dallas if we can, just because we have that space and we can do that. And again, it's just, we're a design company first, so we try and be part of the community wherever we can. And the last thing is asynchronous work. I touched earlier on, we're all in different time zones, which makes meetings very difficult. I've got a lot of 6 a.m. meetings in my calendar, but it also means you have asynchronous work. So our team is kind of working around the clock, which is a huge help when you're trying to grow. Secondly, strategic partnerships and events. So I mentioned earlier we've just partnered with Baker Furniture. So again, that's huge for us because we're going to go from being in Dallas to being in Chicago to being in California to being in New York, Georgia, without actually having to open any showrooms ourselves. And in addition to that, we also partner with smaller showrooms, and this is where our B2B and our trade program kind of comes into play. They're getting a 50% discount. They're essentially stockists for us. But that's just another way to build a bit of brand awareness. And yeah, like I mentioned, if you do have a space that you can give back to the community a bit and host events, definitely use that. As again, that's really going to help you become a local player. And the last point is having diversity in customers. Like I mentioned, our B2C customers, they're one-off, two-off, lower lifetime value. We can't rely on them if we're trying to grow. So that's where we have our B2B customers, which I kind of went through earlier. They're our repeat customers. They're bringing in much more lifetime value. And because we have our own production facility, we also offer a white label program. So designers can come to us and get their products printed. We don't sell those on the website. It's more of they want to sell them direct to customer. So that's another huge advantage we have, and that's definitely another thing that's factored into us being able to grow from Toowoomba to Dallas and beyond. Thanks for coming and hearing me speak. All right, I do have a 20% discount if anyone's interested in Wallpaper. Take a photo, the QR code will take you to the website. But yeah, get some free samples and then get a 20% discount. Thank you.